Welcome to the Root of All Broth. I'm Kathleen Hill. This is the show where we talk about the inspirations behind the foods that we cook. And today, guys, we've got a real serious problem. I have realized that a lot of you must have broken fingers because you haven't hit that subscribe button. Please subscribe to our channel. If you've at least watched 2 of my videos, then you've enjoyed our content. So I'm just asking you today to subscribe. Now today, we are celebrating perfect pairings. That's our inspiration for this week. And just like my perfect pair is my husband, this recipe came from his grandmother. Not the actual recipe, but the inspiration for the recipe because she would make spaghetti and cheese. What's spaghetti and cheese? Well, you're about to find out. Let's get cooking. Do you like macaroni and cheese? Well, then you'll like spaghetti and cheese. Today we're going to combine 2 wonderful cheeses, a Swiss cheese called Raclette and an aged Irish cheddar cheese to make a wonderful pairing to a pot roast, a turkey, or a duck, any holiday festivity. This would be something wonderful to serve. So it's going to be a lot like a casserole and mac and cheese combined. So I'm very excited to share this unique recipe with you today. Okay, for this recipe, you're going to need 4 8-ounce baking coquettes, or you can double this recipe and use an 8x8 baking dish. And we're going to go ahead and grease those with butter. We've already done that, and then we're going to move on to the next step, which is creating the base for our spaghetti and cheese. Okay, we're going to start by taking our coquettes and we're going to line the bottom with them with dried cranberries. So it's about, I don't know, it's not a quarter of a cup, a little less. Just, you can look at it by eye and just till you line them. And we're going to do that on all 4. We tried this recipe, we made this recipe using a bunch of different cheeses, using a bunch of different fruits. Raclette is wonderful with fruit and vegetables. Actually, Raclette cheese, one of the cheeses that we use in this recipe, is from Switzerland, and they use it by melting it off the actual wheel and then just pouring it on top of that, scraping that melted cheese right off that wheel, which is raclette, which means to cut off or scrape off right onto the root vegetables. So it's a really great melty cheese, and we use not only golden raisins but cranberries, and I just like the color of the cranberry for the holidays. If you're making something, it makes it pop. So this recipe takes a little bit of planning. So what you want to do is start with a pan about this size with a half a stick of butter, or that's a quarter of a cup of butter, and we're going to melt that in our pan, and we're going to add also to that 1 can of evaporated milk. And we're going to put this right now on like a 4 or medium low. And we're going to let this merge together. And you can see our butter and our evaporated milk are mixed together, and I'm going to add that pepper. And while we're cooking this, we've got a pot of water on the stove heating up for the spaghetti. So I like a lot of pepper in my spaghetti and cheese. If you don't, you can add less. I use a half a tablespoon now or a little more. Just add what you like. Think about how you like homemade mac and cheese, and if you like a lot of pepper in it, then add pepper. But you definitely need to salt your water when you're making the pasta, as well as we're going to salt later on. But try a different, if we have, the cheeses that we use are pretty mild and they're not very, very salty, so we will add salt to the recipe. But if you use a saltier cheese, you're going to need to back off the salt. So test your cheeses, okay? Okay, I have 1.5 eggs that I have actually whisked together here. And now this is the hardest part. This is tempering your eggs. So if you don't temper these eggs and I were to dump them in this hot liquid, it's going to scramble. And if you've ever had macaroni and cheese where someone didn't do this, it's going to look really rough and you'll have like that scrambled egg appearance. So if you want that smooth as silk appearance, you need to temper your eggs, and that's what we're going to do. So come in closer here, honey, and I'm going to let him close up on there. I've got this on low so it doesn't burn. And we're just going to add a little bit with a spoon of the hot liquid to my eggs, and we'll just stir. I'm going to keep adding this liquid until the eggs are raising in temperature, and then we can put this whole thing of eggs in the evaporated milk and butter, and it won't scramble like that. So it's a slow process. Okay, for this recipe, and just to remind you, all of our recipe details are in the description. So if you want to read through the recipe, they are in the description. So make sure that you take a look. And I'm sure you'll be there because you're going to be subscribing, right? So for this recipe, you're going to need 8 ounces of spaghetti, regular size spaghetti. That's about a half a box. And you want to just break that in 2. And then when we have a boiling pot of water over here waiting, and we're going to add that to the water and cook it for about 8 minutes. You don't want to cook it all the way through because we are going to put this in the oven. Now I'm going to add these eggs back to my evaporated milk and pepper. Like I said, for this recipe, we are going to use about 5 ounces of Raclette cheese and 5 ounces of Irish aged cheddar, which we're using Kerrygold today, and we'll set those aside. But we are going to do like a layering technique in our croquettes when we get started. So you want to have everything really close together at hand because this is going to kind of go pretty quickly once the spaghetti is done cooking. My husband's grandmother, Star, she used spaghetti instead of macaroni simply because she was out of macaroni, and then she stuck with it. So spaghetti and cheese was born at their house, and we're carrying on the tradition. But I'm sure she used the standard Southern macaroni and cheese recipe when she made spaghetti and cheese. We have changed things up a bit, used different cheeses, added new elements like fruits. But you could kind of build off of this and make whatever kind of spaghetti and cheese you'd like, but this is the way that we're doing it. I'm now adding this spaghetti to the boiling pot, and we will cook that. And then we will mix that spaghetti into the evaporated milk, butter, and egg mixture. Okay, so I'm done with boiling my spaghetti, and it's ready to go. I've drained it, and now we're going to put that into the egg and evaporated milk and butter mixture. We're just going to mix all that up. You need it. That's why you need like a big pan like I've got here, because you're really going to want to stir that up. Okay, so we have our oven set for 425 preheating. This part can get a little messy, but for the sake of you seeing how I do it, I brought everything over here to my kitchen bar. So first we're going to take the spaghetti mixture and we're going to put it in a layer on top of that cranberry, okay? And we're going to do that for all 4 of these. I use tongs just because it's easier. Okay, we've done our first layer. Now we're going to go to the cheeses. So we're just going to take a little of each, and we're going to put it on top of that spaghetti layer. We're going to do the same for each. Okay, so now we're going to add more pasta, another layer of pasta. So here we go. Okay, after you've done your final layer, just clean up your croquettes a little bit. If you've got any of this mixture on the outside, you don't want that to be on the outside. Now, a little bit of cheese on the outside is fine, but we don't want any of this filling on the outside. So now let's go back to our cheeses for one final layer and layer it up as much as you want. Okay, these are now ready for the oven. I cleaned up any little cheese that fell on the outside so it wouldn't stick to my pan. We're gonna put it in for 20 minutes and then we'll be ready to eat. Okay, we just took our croquettes out of the oven. You can see how hot and melty and beautiful these are. We're gonna let these cool off because we are not gonna serve them in the croquettes, even though you could if you wanted to. They're just harder to eat that way. I'm gonna serve it on a plate. So So these have been sitting about 5 minutes. We're just gonna run our knife along the edge, and then we're gonna come over to a plate, and we're just simply going to, voila, turn it out. Perfect. Okay guys, that's why we call spaghetti and cheese the perfect pairing. We have our fresh asparagus, our wonderful pot roast, and fresh rolls made by my husband this morning. Wonderful yeast rolls. I hope you try this recipe. I hope you enjoy it as much as we did creating it. And if you have any questions, please, or comments, please put them in the bottom in the description. I look forward to reading all your comments. And let me ask you, what's your favorite pairing for any holiday meal? I'd love to hear from you. And of course, don't forget to subscribe.